I've had the privilege of sitting down with some incredible ranchers over the years. People who built something from nothing, survived things that should have broken them, and came out on the other side with something worth passing down. At the same time, I also visit with ranchers weekly who are struggling, whether in a startup business or trying to turn around a failing one. They're tired and frustrated, and they're wondering if they're on the right track. That's what this show is about. I'm John Haskell, the host of Ranchonomics, the podcast dedicated to helping ranchers win at business. Ranchonomics Stories is where we go deeper, with longer conversations that describe the journey behind the success we see today. The hard years, the turning points, and the lessons that only come from living it. I want these stories to inspire us to keep going even when it's hard, to remind us that success really is possible, to drown out the voices that say it can't be done, and to reinforce our resolve to keep going until we win. Welcome to Ranchonomics Stories. Hello and welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast. I am here today with Wally Olson and Roger and Betsy Indreland, and I am excited for our conversation today because I think we're fixing to learn a few things. So Roger and Betsy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John and
John,
Wally.
Good,
Great to be
Wally,
here.
great to have you here. Thanks for joining us today. Let's jump in. I would like to talk a little about your background first, kind of the evolution of your business since you've been in it and your careers and where you think, where is this whole thing going? So Roger and Betsy, I'll let you guys start.
I'll let you give the history, Roger.
Okay. Well, so basically, I started a small seed stock herd of 13 when I was in high school and bought a little group of bred heifers. And the logic for that, or the reasoning for that, was that my grandfather on my mother's side was one of the founders of the Montana Angus Association that brought Angus cattle into Montana in the 1940s. And so I thought that was pretty cool, and that had kind of been let go by the wayside in the family. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Sounds like something fun to do. So started that actually as an FFA project in high school. And they basically started that as a small FFA project on our family place, and went to college, leased a ranch from my parents, and continued to expand that. And following the path of the latest and greatest, and during this, during the late 70s and 80s, when cattle were really getting bigger fast. And
give us a little picture of kind of the general landscape at that time.
In the economic component, or
in the industry and in our country, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, things were tough in the cattle business. There was, through the 80s, there was a lot of foreclosures and just a lot of moving parts and
High interest rates.
And it was really a lot of people struggling. But I think that, and our family ranch was struggling as well. But on the side, I had this, I worked summers off the ranch and kept the little seed stock business going. But then Betsy and I got together in the mid 80s, and we had leased the ranch from my parents and decided that's what we were going to do. And we had off ranch work, and so we kept things afloat. And basically, we were trying to compete in that, basically that growth, of bigger cattle. Performance was everything. One year we AI'd to a couple of bulls. One was more of a maternal bull. One was a high carcass bull. Anyway, that everything was good until those cows came in as 2-year-olds, and the breed up was terrible on the carcass cattle. So anyway, and economics were dictating that, man, this is not going to work. So we completely switched gears at that point and decided, we're going to do what we need to do and let the cattle be what they need to be to fit that mold. And so we went through, we were still wintertime calving and doing a lot of things. So,
and wintertime in your country is pretty nice, right? I mean, that's normally a beautiful,
it was
beautiful subtropical eastern Montana, right?
Yeah.
So we struggled. We really basically struggled through that for 20 years, I think, in that transition. And then we went to Ranch for Profit School. In the meantime, we had leased a ranch with an option, so we exercised the option Then we went to Ranch for Profit School. That changed things a lot. And then we met Nicole Masters at a workshop in Laramie, or a get-together in Laramie. And that really changed our world and kind of reinforced and really drove us towards the soil health and the low cost. We'd been kind of on the low cost side on the cattle, but we honestly had never thought twice about the soil. So,
and when did
only
you
thing
take,
I think that,
sorry, when did you go to RFP?
2012 for the first time.
Okay. And then when did you meet Nicole Masters?
It was in 2013.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I do think the one thing that kind of helped us along and made it, my dad was pretty low input. So the operation had been ran pretty low input. So I kind of had a pretty good idea what that model could look like. So anyway, that's kind of how we came to the way we think now and the way we operate now.
One thing Dave Pratt always said, you can see the writing on your wall when their back is against it or something along those lines.
That's easiest to see it, right?
Kind of where we were. We were kind of on the borderline of not going to be able to do it. And then we started taking out the direct costs, and that's taking out winter feed costs. That's kind of what changed a lot for us, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Very good. All right. Well, let's jump into the seed stock business, because that's the majority of your business now. So tell us about that. Let's hear about your philosophy, and we nicely now have a little background of how you got there, right?
Right.
Well, we could tell you what our mission is. How's that?
That's great.
Our mission is to provide genetics and services that help cattle producers attain more freedom and profitability in their business and life. What we mean by freedom basically is that, you're not chained to your cows. You don't have to babysit them all the time. They can do it on their own on grass, calve on grass, and therefore, giving you freedom. And then profitability obviously is low input type cattle that can do it mostly on forage.
Yeah, love it. And give a little background of the forage at your place. What are we looking at there?
So our operation is on a mixture of introduced grasses, irrigated land, native pasture. The native pasture, which I wish we had more of, but it's kind of limited. So a mix of brome and alfalfa on the irrigated ground, some dryland crested wheat and alfalfa, and quite a bit of, dryland that is got a lot of brome interspersed with it. And the brome is a potential problem. I mean, it's one of the bottlenecks. One of the things that during the wintertime, when you're stockpiling that for winter feed, it's just hard to keep any value in the brome. But our good native pasture is a complete, if there's enough of it stockpiled, it's a complete forage for cattle for winter.
And Roger, when you're talking about brome, you're talking about smooth brome grass, correct?
That is correct. Smooth brome.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, good. And again, kind of notorious for not storing a lot of quality, right, when you go into dormant season.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. It's probably just a little bit better than straw. It's really.
So
I think
we
it
do
depends
supplement.
on what kind of straw, if you're careful. So
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So we do supplement protein, and typically in the form of high protein hay, because that seems to be the cheapest per pound of protein. So
yeah, great. And you guys source that reasonably locally, or?
Yeah, within about 70 miles.
Okay, great.
On the genetic side, we had our base cow herd, and we switched to calving from February to May, and that showed up. A lot of different things show up when you do that. One is we don't need the kind of milk that the industry has in the cow herd. So that was an effort to try to reduce the milk in the cattle to some degree. And I think a lot of that has just been general selection of those that make it and those that don't. So, when we started doing that, one of the things we've done is we keep most all of the heifer calves. So we have a pretty, and especially during that adjustment time, we had extremely high turnover to where we were breeding yearling heifers with our own bulls that we had raised out of cows that had done a pretty good job, but just happened to be willing to let a lot of cattle fall out of the program, because when you put those kind of pressures on, it's a pretty big sort. And so actually we went through a fair number of years where it was a struggle to even maintain numbers with the amount of fallout in the cow herd and the breed up on the heifers and young cows being kind of poor.
And did you do that jump all in one fell swoop, or did you do it in pieces?
We did that in 2-week increments, moving from, which in hindsight, I'd much rather have just taken that beating all at once. But, and that's what they told us in the school. But, we hear a lot of things. We only do a few.
Oh, yeah. That's all right. Some of us have to learn the hard way. That's just how it goes.
That's right. That's right.
I don't think Wally and I are any exception to that, are we?
Nope.
So as you move, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. As I've moved a number of herds from, a late winter, early spring calving to a late spring, early summer calving, and we do see a fallout. There are ways to get your way through it a little bit, but what's your theory on why the big fallout there? Because it almost seems like, boy, calving in May, that should be easier according to all the books, and yet some cows just don't do it well.
I know for myself, when we moved from winter calving or, to summer calving, we discovered how many bad cows we had.
Mm-hmm.
You do reveal that.
Yeah, and we were pretty lucky that way, because I think on the other, we had the line of cattle that we had kept and used, decided to kind of go with, actually didn't have much issues with udders and teat size and stuff. So we were lucky that way. But purely the amount of pressure that you can put on a cow when you decide to take most of the winter feed away from them that you're hauling in, and when you decide to go with stockpile forage. And we don't always do the proper job of stockpiling the forage to the quality that we think we could. But
especially with planted non-native grasses, right? Yeah.
Right. But, the whole deal with the amount of fallout, I think the more I see that, and I see it even in a herd when that's already at a certain date, it seems like cows have kind of what I call a biological clock, and they grow up, and when they get bred, they're probably, odds are that they're going to calve in that 2-week window the rest of their life. And there's something internal that I don't think we even come close to understanding. But I would venture to say that if you were trying to move cattle, it'd be easier to move younger cattle than older cattle. Like if you take a bunch of 8, 10-year-old cows and think you're going to move them from May to February, or, that's going to be really hard to do. So I think that's almost equally hard, no matter which direction you're trying to move it.
Yeah, very good. Want to sharpen your business skills without leaving the ranch? Our Ranch Right webinars cover everything from the financial basics to business strategy and tax prep, all taught by our own ranching and finance experts from the team at Ranch Right. Join us online, ask questions, and get practical tools you can put to work tomorrow. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn to receive updates on our next session, and catch up on all of our past webinars by visiting and subscribing to Ranch Right LLC on YouTube. Let's talk a little about your selection of animals to breed, your selection of animals to sell, that sort of thing.
On our selection of animals to breed, we keep pretty much all our heifer calves. A handful we'll sort off and take to town. But, following Burke-type, advice, just expose them all. Let Mother Nature pick them out. The ones that get bred and, calve early and then can breed back. So we try to let Mother Nature kind of do a lot of the sorting for us, because they seem to be able to pick them better than we can, for sure. So,
yeah, no doubt about that. I think just applying whatever you need to do within your operation to keep your costs down, and let it fall where it may. But I think there are some things you can leverage a little bit. If you've had a production system that you've been using and you've got some older cows in there, I would certainly try to keep bulls at least out of those older cows that bred every every year and did the job. So I think keeping those genetics and actually tightening the genetics up. I know there's a lot of talk about, you want to be careful how tight you breed cattle and don't want to be inbreeding and people are afraid to keep a bull and breed them back to their daughters or any of those things. But I don't think, to us, that's not a big concern. I think cattle genetics basically moves slow enough. As long as they're working, I think keep pushing that. And I think that's an effort to kind of mimic what happens in wild herds when you see there's, the dominant animals. Occasionally you get infiltration of a new bull elk or a new buck deer, but they've got to be dominant before they have much influence in that area. So I think that's really trying to mimic that natural system is where we go.
We've pretty much been keeping our own bulls to use, so that does tighten that up quite a bit. And then also we multi-sire breed, so we'll put however many bulls out with the group of cows, and then we'll do DNA to determine the sires. And that really tells you a lot about the bulls, which ones are dominant, which ones are getting the job done. And so that made our life a lot easier once we discovered we could do that. And then, because then we can have, the majority of the cows with however many bulls are needed and just have them out there rather than having to have one bull with 25 cows or whatever. So we've learned a lot from that.
Yeah, and I assume you guys see what we see all over the place, right? Is that when you have multiple bulls in a pasture, 80% of the cows get bred by one bull, and then they stack on down, right? And then depending on how you do that mix, it could be a new top bull each time, right?
That is true. That is true. We've seen a bull though repeatedly have 75 plus calves per year, and for 2 or 3 years in a row, and it's like, well, that's a dominant bull, and you think about that, and that's nature at work, because there's going to be more daughters in the herd out of him, and a good bull is going to produce good daughters. I mean, it goes hand in hand. So we also, like, I certainly believe in the shape of the cow and
Steve Campbell's stuff.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Steve Campbell and the Bonsma thought of the red solo cup shape, and whether. We don't necessarily follow that science or anything specifically, but that's what we see happening. That's the kind of cows that are, and the type of cows and bulls that are showing up to be the most prolific.
Yep. So in a pretty holistic selection process like yours, where you're allowing those heifers to get bred, you're letting the bulls do the selection, you're in a multi-bull system where you have, competition amongst those bulls, you're not selecting I'm just clarifying what you're saying. You're not selecting for the red solo cup. That's just what keeps emerging as the best cows in that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
That's excellent. Yeah. And so that keeps us out of the problems that come from if we get super focused on one or two or even three traits, kind of leading us the wrong direction and getting a cow that really doesn't fit the environment.
Right.
I think, John, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, you start, because there's always the latest and greatest selection tool, and there's so many things. You could spend your whole life on spreadsheets trying to sort that out.
Oh yeah,
there's just too many things at
and
play.
People have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what we've done, and the industry it's been a roller coaster because of it. And I guess I'm kind of my own worst, in the seed stock business, the idea is that you promote and sell bulls, but in an ideal world, in my mind, our bull customers would keep their own bulls out of their best cow and do kind of what we're doing. There wouldn't be much need for seed stock producers. So that's kind of my thoughts in general.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that's a long ways away. I think human nature tends to be, we got to find the latest thing to drill down on.
Yes, that exactly. We almost need to do that, right? It's like human nature, right?
It is.
Yeah, very good. Okay, let's talk a little more then about, give us the mechanics of being a bull producer. So you calve in May, kind of give us what does your annual cycle look like? And again, springtime arrives in your part of the world kind of beginning first half of May?
Pretty much, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Sometimes late April.
Yeah, okay. I assume your crested starts to green up at least by the beginning of April.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Usually have one good snowstorm in May,
Yeah. I'm hoping we're going to have 2 this year because
That's right. That's right.
we're a little behind. We're recording this in the spring of 2026, if you're listening.
Right. That's good to know, John.
It makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
for sure.
We transitioned. We used to sell yearling bulls. So we calved in February and weaned the bulls in October, put them in a lot, grew them out, and sold them as yearlings. And so we did the transition to 18-month-old bulls over a couple-year period where economically we couldn't just forego a bull crop. So anyway, we private treaty sold those bulls, and then we went to a sale with it. Then we started doing the 18-month-old bulls and kind of kept those. And once we got switched, which took about 3 years to make that complete switch to selling 18-month-old bulls. So basically now we're calving in May. We wean those calves in January. After they're weaned, we separate the heifers and the bull calves. They basically get through the rest of the winter. Sometimes we'll supplement some cake or a little bit of oats and some hay on the calves. They go to green grass they're always grazing while we're developing them. So we're just feeding for the most part in pastures. But then they grow out and develop over the summer. And then in recent years, we've started leasing quite a few bulls. So we semen test them basically at 11 to 12 months old to discover which bulls are fertile to breed heifers with for lease bulls. Then they come back, go through a quarantine period, as well as a series of testing, and then they're eligible for our fall sale. There's a handful of those bulls that have been leased out that anyway, they don't make the semen test for the fall sale. So those are held over and have been private treaties sold, but we're going to have a spring sale this year and just condense that, doing all that business in one day rather than spread that out over 2 or 3 weeks or a month. So that's the cycle on the bulls. And basically the cow herd we have a lot of lease ground scattered all over. So basically the cow herd lives close to home on lease ground and on our deeded ground through the winter. And then we'll haul them to mountain pasture about middle of April, and they'll calve there, and then we'll haul them back late October, early November, and go to stockpile feed at home. And yeah, that's just where we're at right now. That's kind of the cycle.
Yeah, love it. And you're weaning your heifers at the same time you wean the bulls? How are you managing those?
We do. We wean the heifer calves and the bull calves together. And then we will leave those together depending on, but we'll kind of leave them together until we see a heifer or two cycling. At that point, we feel we need to get them separated, and we pull the bulls separate. And at that point, we're kind of starting to manage them. And being in the seed stock, I mean, there's a lot, like we got to get those calves, get the DNA sent in. We got to get the tattoos in them so we have permanent identification and those kind of things. And I do like that. I mean, I like the idea of permanent ID in these cattle so we can actually track them and follow them and satisfy our need to know, I guess.
Right, right. Okay, excellent. Wally, what else? What other questions do you have for this?
Well, to me, the way I'm thrilled the way Roger and Betsy do this. I mean, they basically let nature do the selecting, correct? I mean, that's just, you just using multiple bulls, find out which one's got, I guess, if he breeds 80% of the cows, he's got the highest libido, correct? And
he's the one.
It's just very, very simple. I mean, and stuff. And I also like, we haven't talked about how and I would love to come watch the stockmanship guy work on the stockmanship on them. And, just all the things that you do that are just very practical, in my opinion, considering the unpractical world of the seed stock business.
And they're all the things that we do in a normal operation, right? So, I mean, Roger and Betsy, I mean, no insult to anybody by saying you kind of run a regular cow operation and then select the best and sell those to other people at a premium, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. And we do our sale low input as well. And, just the marketing. I mean, what you can spend on marketing is endless, as you guys well know, I'm sure. So we do a lot of social media, a few ads here and there, Stockman Grass Farmer and a couple local ones, but try to get a lot of posters up around the state. So we try to really watch our expenses on that. But then we just do an online sale. We video the bulls ahead of time, and then it's an online sale, but yet people can still come look at the bulls just like a regular sale and bid online or in the stands, basically, which up until this last year, we just had it in our house. So that was pretty much low budget. But then we did move it to a small cafe that's just a few miles away from us. So I enjoyed that very much, not having it in our house. But and we'll do that again this spring. But yeah, so we just try to keep those costs low because those can really eat your lunch.
Oh man, yeah. And when the cattle go to their new home, I'm assuming, giving the background that they haven't been fed on a silver platter at your house. They've been run like cows and run like range animals. So when they go to their new home, I assume they do just fine.
Yep.
Yeah, and Wally, I'm glad you brought up the stockmanship, because I think that's basically an untapped resource, and the trickle down effects of better stockmanship. And I refrain from using the word good stockmanship, because everybody's at a level, and every set of cows is at kind of a level. And so any improvement that can be made along those lines is the impacts that, cattle health and less stress and all those things for the people and the cattle. That's one thing that is just truly a win-win if we'll just spend a little bit of time thinking about it.
Don Notto once talked to me about stockmanship from the framework of preparing those cattle for their next stop, right? So whatever they need to go to next, whether it's the next owner and it's to range, or whether it's to a feedlot or whatever, you are preparing those animals to deal with that as, in the best possible way. That helps me think about it sometimes, because it's not always about what we're doing here at home. It's about what the rest of their life looks like and getting them ready for that.
Right.
Yeah, yep. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Very good. Wally, what else?
One thing on this sale coming up that you're having, when is it again?
It's on May 29th.
I take the Tri-State News from South Dakota or wherever it is, and we're in the bull selling season, which I don't understand why everybody up north just has to have their sales and worry about blizzards and all of the above. But that's just me. Now, what possessed you to have this, I would say, late sale? I mean, I think it's a great idea myself.
Well, a lot of our customers, aren't turning bulls out like us till the end of July or so. And, we do have the December sale, but at that time, there's a lot of people that don't know if they're going to keep their heifers yet, or, what the next year is going to look like, what their needs are. They haven't semen tested their bulls yet. So we just thought it was a real opportunity to kind of meet the needs of our customers that time of year.
Yeah, I think that combined with, we had those lease bulls that don't semen test or for the fall sale because they've been out all summer. And, we've been private treating those bulls through the spring. And basically part of it is an efficiency of our time, because throughout the spring, there will be 2 weeks. When you add it up, there's 2 weeks out of the spring that, somebody calls wanting to look at bulls. And if we're in the bull business, you drop everything you're doing and you go show them bulls. Well, now they may be interested, they may not. And then somebody calls the next day and now you're not sure which bulls are available and which ones aren't. So we basically just decided to condense that business into one day. That was a kind of a selfish choice on our part to decide to just get that done.
Yeah, but you got to manage your time doing that, because.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I like about it is, here they are. You can either buy them or not. It's up to you. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I think we'll continue to have the December sale with probably about 60 head of the 18-month-old and then, 40 to 50 full 2-year-olds in the spring. So we think that's probably a good plan moving forward.
Yeah. And the value of those bulls, a full 2-year-old bull is, they can really go to work somewhere.
Yes. All right. So Roger and Betsy, from the first, and really Roger, right? Because you were a teenager, you guys weren't married yet. From those first bred heifers that you started with, what does that look like decades later? And mostly who I'm asking you to speak to here is somebody that's new, somebody that's 17 years old, even somebody like my kid, who's so excited about the cattle business, she can't stand herself. She just wants to get rolling as much as she can because she knows it's going to work. How does that look over the course of 20 or 30 years?
Yeah. So, I went and took out a loan on 13 bred heifers, albeit they were $350 registered bred heifers. So, the price was right, but that was the market then.
Right. And
there was a couple of them at
1980, right? Or late 70s. So
gas about 1977.
Okay. So gas is what, 29 cents a gallon kind of thing?
Yeah, probably. That's probably right.
39 cents a gallon. Maybe we'll look that up. Yeah.
But at any rate, I continued to grow that, bought a few more cows, bred cows in the 80s. And then in the late 80s, we leased 100 head of bred cows, registered bred cows. It came from the East Coast. We leased them and had the option to buy them out. But, our herd will calve something over 300 this spring. And that's the cattle side. The land side, we started out on about 2,000 acres of my parents' home place, which we bought since then, leased with an option and bought that. And then we've continued to lease. So our current operation is about 12,000 acres between deeded and leased ground. And so, that's in a nutshell. There's been a lot of heartache and a lot of learning and some painful conversations along the lines. There's no doubt about that. But, it was a passion for me. And I think that passion was driven by my grandfather. So I think that there was, plus just being stubborn, and wanting to persevere, but also just looking out to other things and always reaching out for new ideas and other ways to do things. We didn't have the luxury of being able to say, well, what we're doing is good enough. We have to always get better and try to do better. And that led us to professional development with Ranch for Profit and Nicole Masters. And, that's only the production side. And we're now moving towards more professional development with your company, John, with Ranch Right and understanding the financial world of which is the other half actually is what we're coming to realize. We grow up thinking that it's all about the production, and that's only half of a business. So, I think
it is a very important half, right? We can't be good in this business if we're not good at that, but I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those things and just combining it and we probably move slower. It's probably taken us a lot longer than other people to reach a point. But we have 2 daughters that probably won't run the operating business, but we will probably transition the operating business to a young family that's working with us now that I'm pretty convinced will own the operating business at some point. And so
we have separated our land business from our operating business,
right?
To be able to deal with succession issues. And our daughter Anne would love to have a horse enterprise, and she does in Texas right now. And our other daughter Kate is in the Army, serving our country, and I think she'll be back around someday, I believe, too. And just they both love how they were brought up and value that lifestyle. So even if they're not directly involved in the operating business, they still see the value in it. So,
well, thank you to you all and your daughter for her service in the military. That's a big deal. I know there are lots of great kids that go from Montana, Wyoming into that chosen career and do very well with it. So good. Did this journey look like what you expected it to look like? Wally is always asking me, like, did you think you'd be here 10 years ago? And as of about 2 years ago, my answer would have always been no, because, of course, 10 years prior to 2 years ago, I was single and living on a big ranch and enjoying myself every day. And now I'm married with 3 kids and live outside town and things, own cows all over the country. Things are kind of different. So how about you guys? When your 25-year-old selves looked forward, did you imagine yourselves being where you are now?
I think roughly it has been for me. I think it's been different for you.
Well, tell the story about how when you were 10, you thought
Well,
you would.
the major thing that's different is that when I was 10, I thought I'd be where I am now by the time I was 13.
No kidding. Yeah.
So when I say I'm living the dream, it's absolutely the truth.
It's just taking you a little longer to get there, huh?
Yeah,
Just a little longer, yeah.
There was a few bumps along the road, which I didn't anticipate when I was 10 years old.
I was not raised on a ranch, so I just feel really blessed that I was able to share in Roger's vision and his dream, and it's become our dream and our passion. So I feel really blessed to be part of that.
Good. And I think, Betsy, that's a super important ingredient of what you guys have done, right? Everywhere I go, if you are there, you're both there, right? You're side by side in this thing, both you in up to your neck, right?
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
That's right.
Digging out of a hole.
Whatever hole your 13-year-old self has gotten you into, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I love it. Very good. And again, you're in a position now where, from those first heifers, I think the idea that it takes longer than we think, but if you are persistent and you are continuing to improve throughout that, you get to be where you guys are now, right? And some of that is family legacy, and some of that is your hard work and improvement, and some of that is letting time sort of take its toll, right?
I think that's good. I think that's exactly right, John.
Yeah. Very good. Very, very good. Wally, anything you want to add to that?
No, I would say, and another thing is education. I think all 3 of us, or all 4 of us in this group, would agree that, attending ranching for profit was a big change in our lives. And I wished we could get youth more in, tune. Chip Hines and I, we talked a lot about putting an old head on young shoulders, and it is tough to do that. And you got to understand that my deal is you got to let people bleed to get their attention. You just don't want to let them bleed to death, and it's tough to do. But education's important. I mean,
I have been thinking about that a lot last night. It's been cold here the last couple of days, and spring break, so I took the kids to the pool last night. And my 4-year-old will just run and jump in any body of water. It doesn't matter how big or how small. You guys have seen him at the beach down in Alabama, like he's just fearless. And boy, you have to let him get right to that point where he's like, oh, I am not the best swimmer. I should be more cautious. But you could tell him all day long, it's not going to do anything. His mother would save him every time. I'll let him get right to that edge as long as I'm close enough to be able to not have him actually drown. But you kind of want him to almost think, boy, I'm in a little trouble. I could use some help. Yesterday, after about 45 minutes, he says, hey, can I go get a life jacket? That's a great idea, young man. Let's do that.
That's right. That's right.
Funny you should suggest that. So, okay, the other thing I'd love to ask you guys, given that you've been at this from the mid-'70s, which reminds me, I did a quick Google search. Fuel was significantly more expensive than I said. It was about 70 cents a gallon. My memory comes from the early 80s after, about the time in the mid-'80s when I got my license, fuel prices were significantly lower than that. But during the Carter administration, fuel was quite expensive. Would you, looking back and thinking about the Carter administration, the early Reagan years, some of the big recessions that we went through, is it harder or easier to start a ranch now?
Well, I think it could be both, John, and I think it depends on where you're at, because regionally there are areas where people are buying land and they're looking for young, energetic people to manage it, and in those cases, I think it can work pretty well. But if you're in a ranching area where it's predominantly a ranching area, it's hard to find extra ground or compete with the neighbors for picking up a lease or something. So I think it depends on how willing you are to stretch yourself thin to acquire some grazing. But I do think if you have the mindset where about all you need is some grazing, you can succeed very successfully.
You don't need to own the land.
You don't need to own the land. Yeah, I don't even know that you need to own the cattle. But, I think there's opportunity. But you do have to be willing to develop relationships.
Yeah. So would you say, like where you guys live, was it easy to lease ground in the 80s?
Not in the 80s, but it's easier now.
Interesting. Yeah, because of the demographic change that's happened in the area.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which has also driven up the price of ground, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And throughout your career, you guys have been buying ground, right? You've mentioned a couple of times where you've leased with an option, right? And proceeded that way. So you have been able to pay for land as you go.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the other thing along those lines is a little bit of an out-of-the-box mentality about management and realizing that you're not managing just for your cow herd. If you're managing other people's land, it's probably the wildlife and taking care of the land is probably higher on their radar than it is if you're just looking at it from a cow's perspective.
Yeah, very good. Wally, any other thoughts there? Betsy, any other thoughts?
No, my deal is like, if you want to, start ranching, like Bud Williams says, start, because until you start, you can't manage, and so there's a gazillion ways to start ranching, and if that's what you want to do, just do it.
There's nothing like the pure panic of having it all on the line, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
You don't have to be born into it. There's ways you can get into it for sure.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. We get the question all the time. We, as you guys know, work with a lot of, people that are starting up. We look at a lot of people that are doing generational transitions, that sort of thing. And over again, we get the question, can you buy land? Can you ranch and be profitable now? And when I look at the resources and opportunities available to us right now, I just see an unbelievable opportunity. The continuing ed, I think about, even what are we talking, 13 years ago when you guys took ranching for profit, the amount of educational opportunities that are available to us now in 2026 compared to what was available in 2013. Amazing. Wally, you took RFP was it in the 90s or was it early 2000s?
In 1989, I took my first ranching for profit school. In 1992, I met Bud Williams and Eunice, and away we went.
But you had to meet them in person. You didn't get to find them on the internet. That was no Google search, right?
No, it wasn't. There was no Google searches, and it was
right.
My deal was if I read about somebody, and I'd just load up and go down and meet him, just like Walt Davis. I just called him and went down and met him, and he was a lifelong mentor of mine.
Very, very good. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing that. These are valuable stories for us to share because we are just surrounded by terrible negative thoughts all the time in this industry and frankly in our country at this point, in all kinds of industries. So really glad to hear that. I classify you guys and your family as, kind of a great American success story. You have done a wonderful job throughout your career.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
You guys. Yeah,
you bet.
Great opportunity for us. Love to share our story.
Good. Real quickly, people can get a hold of you through IndrelandRanch.com. Is that right? Your website?
Yep.
Very good. Okay.
Yep. And the 29th of May is our spring bull sale, our first spring bull sale. So we'll see how that goes.
Good. Yeah. Well, we're a little more than 2 months away, so it's coming fast.
That's right.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks very much.
You bet. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in to Ranchonomics Stories. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with a friend or family member who you think would find it helpful too. Be sure to subscribe and follow the show so you don't miss next week's story.